Let me tell you something that most people completely miss when they talk about millionaires. They think a million is the finish line. It's not, it's just a category. And there are two very different kinds of millionaires. So, same 1 million, two totally different lives. One is house rich, where their net worth shows seven figures, but it's locked in bricks, drywall, and memories. And the other, it's actually tracking investable wealth. That's liquid capital that's actually working, growing, and buying back their time. And when you separate those two, the map changes. New York still sits on top with the real investable wealth millionaires. And Toronto and Vancouver, they also stay hot. But even inside those cities, most so called millionaires, they don't feel rich, right? Because of taxes, housing, and inflation in 2025, it's honestly really heavy. So, in this video, I'm going to walk you through three things. First, where real millionaires actually live today, both in Canada and in the US. And secondly, why 1 million can still feel super tight, especially in those high cost of living cities. And lastly, I'm going to walk you through a simple ladder strategy to shift from being paper rich to actually having investable wealth without blowing up your lifestyle. And look, if you're in that 35 to 55 window, mortgage free or getting pretty close, and you're asking, are we net worth millionaires or are we investable wealth millionaires? I want you to stick with me, okay? Because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly where you stand and more importantly, what to do next. Wealth, it's what you don't see. That quote hits harder the more you think about it because here's the truth. The word millionaire, it's kind of broken. It describes two completely different realities, like I mentioned earlier. One looks rich on paper, big house, decent portfolio, but the other actually buys freedom because their money is liquid, invested, and actually working. So let's break it down a little bit more clearly. A net worth millionaire, they ask, what do I own after my debts? But an investable wealth millionaire, they ask a totally different question. What can I move or invest by Monday? That one shift in mindset completely changes everything, right? See, when Henley released their 2025 Global Wealth Report, they didn't count just anyone with a big house and a mortgage. They counted millionaires based on investable wealth. So that's listed securities, cash, bonds, gold, and even crypto, right? And your principal residence? Completely excluded. That's why the rankings, they surprised everyone. Because real estate might make you feel wealthy on paper, but unless that equity is unlocked, it's not building wealth you can actually use. And that's the entire theme of this video. There's a difference between having wealth and having access to it, right? So let's zoom in and see where the investable wealth millionaires actually live in Canada and the US. Capital attracts capital. And where it clusters, that tells you where real money is actually moving, right? Not just net worth, but actual liquidity. Because $1 million in one city might feel wealthy, while in another, it completely feels middle class. So let's go deeper for a second. UBS estimates that there are nearly 60 million millionaires worldwide, and right now the US holds about 40% of them. Why? Because of deep capital markets and a booming tech sector and a massive wealth transfer that's already underway. Now, as a Canadian watching that from the outside, what's happening down south is really clear. The capital, it's compounding, and it's compounding really fast. Here's where it gets interesting. At a city level, this is what the latest 2025 Henley report shows. New York City sits at the top with 384,500 liquid millionaires. Bay Area falls close behind with 342,400. Los Angeles lands in fifth with 220,600. And Chicago rounds out the top 10 with 127,100 investable wealth millionaires. Now, north of the border where I'm from, Toronto ranks at 15th globally with about 108,400 investable wealth millionaires, and Vancouver shows up at 29th with 46,400. And here's the key though, these aren't just people with big homes, right? These counts are based on liquid investable wealth. That means cash, liquid securities, bonds, gold, and even crypto. This doesn't include your primary residence. And that's why this list looks the way it does. Because real estate hotspots like Toronto and Vancouver, and even LA, they show tons of paper millionaires. Far fewer people who can actually deploy capital when opportunities strike. So as an actionable step, if you want to check out your own positioning, log into your investment accounts and total up just your liquid assets. No house, no car, no pension projections. just the money that's actually working for you right now. That's going to be your investable base. I want you to write it down and track it monthly. So now maybe this question makes a lot more sense now, because how can there be so many millionaires in this city and nobody feels rich? So let's talk about it, because when $1 million can barely cover your housing and your taxes, it's no longer a milestone, it's an actual weight. So let me show you why 1 million still feels tight. When your mortgage eats away at your paycheck, a million on paper, it won't feel rich, because wealth isn't just about what you have, it's about what you can actually access. In high cost cities, your cash flow gets taxed long before your spreadsheet ever does. So housing, childcare, groceries, healthcare premiums if you're in the US, all pulls away from the same dollars your investments need to grow. In Canada, affordability numbers are absolutely brutal, because according to RBC, in Vancouver, the average household needs 92.7% of its income just to carry home ownership costs. In Toronto, it's not any better. It's at 68.3, and then nationwide, we're still at an eye-watering 55.1%. Let that sink in for a second, because if you're earning $100,000 and 92,000 of that is going towards your shelter costs, what's left to invest? How do you even breathe, right? Now factor in taxes, inflation, and rising maintenance costs. That $1 million net worth starts to feel less like an actual finish line and more like a financial treadmill. Here's where tools like wahi.com can really help you if you're a Canadian. Now, I'm already mortgage free, but I still use Wahi to stay on top of affordability trends and neighborhood data, right? It helps you see where your home stacks up, not just in terms of value, but also cost to carry, which is huge if you're trying to understand where your wealth is really going. Because even if you're mortgage free, knowing this kind of knowledge is really powerful. Because when you're house rich and cash poor, you might technically be a millionaire, but you don't have the liquidity. And that liquidity, that's what buys you the options. So remember, your primary residence gives you the security, but your investable capital, that's what buys you flexibility, peace of mind, and actual freedom. That's why it's so critical to separate the two, right? Because net worth is what looks good on paper, but investable wealth, that's what actually moves the needle forward. So as an actionable step, if your monthly costs feel like they're always chasing your income, I want you to pull your last 3 months of spending. So list every house-related expense. That's your mortgage or your rent, your property tax, your insurance, your maintenance, and even your utilities. Then I want you to calculate what percentage of your income is actually going towards your shelter. If it's above 50%, you're not alone, but it's a sign that your next move needs to be about creating more margin for yourself. So now that we've separated appearance of wealth from what actually moves the needle, let's kill that comparison game, because the only benchmark that really matters isn't how you stack up to your neighbors, it's how fast you can actually grow your investable base. So let's walk through what that actually looks like with benchmarks that actually mean something. Stop asking, am I there yet? And start asking, did my investable bucket grow this month? Because honestly, it's the only benchmark that actually compounds. There are really only two checkpoints you should look at, but only one actually moves that needle. So let's start with the first one. That's median household net worth. This is your sanity check. It's not about setting goals with this. It's more of a gut check to check yourself against your typical family. In Canada, the latest survey of financial security puts that number at about 520,000. In the US, it's closer to about 192,000, according to the Fed's latest report. Now, if you own your home and you're nearing retirement, you'll skew higher. But if you're younger and just starting out, you'll be lower. And honestly, that's normal. But this number, it's not the scoreboard. It's just a snapshot. What matters is your investable base, the money that's actually liquid, compounding, and working for you. This is your literal lever. And it's exactly what global wealth researchers use when they count millionaires, because only liquid capital can be reallocated and accelerated. Your house might act as an anchor for your net worth, but your investable assets is what actually moves your needle forward. So let's say that you and your partner are mortgage free on a $750,000 home. You've got about $450,000 in liquid investments and no debt. That puts your total net worth at around $1.2 million. It sounds great, right? But in terms of investable wealth, you're working with $450,000. And that's honestly the number that really counts because that's what gives you your options. That's what compounds and scales and eventually replaces your paycheck. So the real goal here isn't just to be a paper millionaire. It's to get your investable base to $1 million or beyond. And the way that you do that, honestly, one step at a time. So now that we're both aligned on the only benchmark that really matters, let's grow your wealth bucket with a simple step-by-step ladder from 10K to 100K to 1 million and beyond, not just in net worth, but in capital that you can actually use. But before we dive into the step-by-step strategy, if this video is helping you see wealth a little differently, do me a quick favor, tap subscribe or hit that like button if you haven't already. It's totally free. It takes literally a second. It helps this channel reach more people who are trying to build real wealth the slow, steady, and intentional way. So to thank you, here's a tortoise just minding his business, moving slow and winning the race anyways. I appreciate you being here. Now let's get back to it. The ladder from net worth to investable wealth. Now this is the part that actually shifts your outcome because theory is great, but what really builds momentum is having a clear system, right? So here's the 6-step ladder that helped my wife and I move from just having a net worth number on paper to actually building real liquid investable wealth. Step 1 is to protect your surplus and widen your wealth gap. Start by pulling your last 90 days of spending. Then I want you to temporarily freeze your lifestyle for the next 12 months. So no upgrades, no creeping expenses, and just focus on building your margin. So any raise, bonus, or unexpected income, that all gets redirected into your investable bucket. Now, if you're already past that beginner stage, this is where you're going to double down because wealth at this level, it's not about just cutting lattes. It's about protecting that spread, right? So remember, freedom lives inside of those gaps between what you earn and what you keep. Step 2 is to maximize your shelters before anything else. So stop tipping the tax man, okay? That's money that could be compounding for you. So in Canada, that means pushing to fully utilize your TFSA or your RRSP, in that order specifically. So in the US, that's your Roth IRA, your traditional IRA, your 401k, or your HSA, whatever fits your situation best. And the strategy here, keep it simple. Invest in broad market index funds, ETFs, cash flowing dividend growers. Don't be chasing trends here, okay? And remember the quiet millionaires that you never heard about? Yeah, they automate, they max out their shelters, and they stay boring on purpose. Step 3 is to simplify your portfolio so it actually scales. If your portfolio is too complicated to manage, it won't grow with you, so you need to build it to last. So stick to a 3-fund strategy. That's Canadian equities, US equities, and international equities. Then you want to add a broad bond ETF to give your portfolio some stability, especially when the market starts to get really emotional. Now, if you're 45, mortgage-free, and investing $3,000 to $5,000 a month, the winning strategy here is the one that you can actually stay consistent with during every single market mood swing. So automate your contributions and rebalance once a year, and that's it. Step 4 is to build a second engine, not another job, but a second source of capital. Because let's be honest, at this stage in life, your edge isn't unlimited time anymore. It's cash flow and skill leverage. You don't need to hustle 24/7. You just need to turn what you already know into deployable capital. For some, that might mean negotiating a 10 to 20% raise, taking a short-term contract, or focusing on hitting some sort of bonus milestone. For others, that might mean bookkeeping, tutoring, design, project coordination, or whatever you're already good at. And if you just need a quick win, sell some idle gear in the garage or in the basement, rent out a parking spot, or take on one seasonal project that fits your schedule. But here's the key. You need to give yourself guardrails. You want to cap your effort at one evening or one weekend per month. And if it starts to drain your energy or affect your family, you need to take a pause, reevaluate, and then recalibrate because you don't want this to be hustle culture. You want it to be strategic fuel. Step 5 is to automate everything. If you're already earning more, don't let that money drift away. Lock in that system. Automate your transfers, automate your investing, and automate your savings. Because willpower, it's inconsistent, but automation, it isn't. And I'm saying this from experience. If you don't lock in your system, lifestyle creep will find its way. I guarantee it. And finally, step 6 is to run a yearly efficiency audit. This is where you're going to start tightening up your bolts. First, check for idle cash. If it's sitting in a regular check-ins account, earning like 0.01%, you need to move it into a proper high-interest savings account. So if you're Canadian like me, you have options like Coho, EQ Banking, or Wealth Simple, whatever fits. And secondly, review your taxes. If there's an opportunity to harvest a loss or rebalance your taxes for whatever reason, take it. And lastly, check your fees. High MERs, which stand for management expense ratio. They seem small at first, but they eat away at your compounding every year. So you really need to keep that in check. These 6 steps, they're boring, but that's exactly why it works. Because when you put all 6 of these steps together, what you're really building is a quiet, efficient machine. One that grows your money, protects your peace, and moves you from surviving on paper wealth to actually building real freedom. So remember, becoming a millionaire on paper can be the focus at first, but it isn't the goal. It's what you can actually use, move, and grow that actually matters. It's where your house becomes your foundation, but not your finish line. It's where liquidity buys margin, not just more square footage. It's where you stop asking, am I there yet? And you start asking, did my investable base grow this month? And lastly, it's where your wealth builds quietly, step by step, through growing your margin, tax shelters, automation, and simplicity. That's the real shift from static net worth to dynamic deployable wealth. And here's the brutal truth. Most people, they'll never reach that shift. Not because they couldn't, but because they stayed focused on what looked like wealth instead of building what actually works. So if you're simplifying, automating, protecting your spread, and subscribing, hitting that like button, you're already doing what most people won't. So stay consistent, stay intentional, and protect your momentum like your future depends on it. Because honestly, it really does. And if you're working towards your first 100K in investable wealth, go watch this next. It's about why the first 100K is the hardest and what no one's going to tell you. I'll show you exactly why everything changes after this number and how my wife and I personally got there without burning out. So thanks so much for watching. Stay focused, stay in the black, and I'll see you in the next one.